Hello, welcome to this week's video. This week sees the release of Narelle King's second novel, The Bonehead Gate, the sequel to her best-selling The Bonehead Resistance, both of which are available now from Black Cockie Press. Speaking of Black Cockie Press, if you would like to support us and our channel, please, you can come along to our store where we sell our books, obviously, and writing services and other things to help with your writing, or you can go over to our Redbubble store where there are over 100 different designs for you to choose from on a wide range of products. If you want to support us and you don't want to spend any money, then please like, subscribe, comment, share. Please do that anyway. And today, what I have for you is the first chapter of Narelle King's extremely exciting, fun, fast-paced, thrilling novel, The Bonehead Gate. If you haven't read The Bonehead Resistance, highly recommend before you come in for The Bonehead Gate. Big things happening in this novel. So, Chapter 1. Beck squatted on an eroded dirt road near the top of Mount Stromlo. A mountain bike hurtled up a track towards her, its wheels kicking up clouds of dust. The rider pedalled as though the forces of hell were after him. She stood. The rider skidded to a stop in front of her. He was short, with weathered skin, his head hidden by a helmet. His thick leg muscles suggested he was a regular mountain biker. He was squeezing the handlebars so tight that the veins on his hands had popped out. Above his hands, his arms were rigid. "Are you Beck?" "Viking mountain biker," he gasped, using the handle he'd used on the private messaging app when they arranged to meet. He had a strong German accent. He looked back the way he'd come, a wild look in his eyes. Beck followed his gaze. A mix of pine and eucalypt trees grew further down the slope. Between the trees she could see Canberra spread out below them. To her left, the mountain bike track crossed the road and continued its winding way on the other side. A mob of kangaroos lay in the long yellow grass next to it, their ears sticking up over the grass. She couldn't see any reason for Viking mountain bikers' fear. What? The kangaroos rose and bounded away. "Wombats incoming!" Luke yelled, appearing from behind a patch of casuarinas on the other side of the road and sprinting towards them. Viking mountain biker flinched. "It's okay, he's with me," Beck said. Two of the strange carnivorous marsupials that looked like giant wombats loped up the mountain bike track. For animals with large bodies and short legs, they could run fast. "Damn, I hate those things." Beck felt a twinge in her left shoulder where a giant wombat had bitten her a little under 3 months ago. "Get behind us," she ordered Viking mountain biker. Viking mountain biker dumped his bike and scuttled behind them, gasping as though he were hyperventilating. Beck raised her rifle. "I've got the one on the left." She fired, hearing a crack next to her as Luke shot at the wombat on the right. The bullet stopped an inch from the wombats and fell to the ground. The wombats didn't stop. "Shit," said Belle. "They've got thongs." "The hard way then." Luke swung the rifle over his shoulder and unsheathed a hunting knife with the double-edged blade and a wooden handle. He planted his feet, an intense look in his pale blue eyes. Beck drew a long, thin sword. It was similar in design to the ones carried by the Boneheads, but the hilt was wrapped in brown leather, not black, a sign that it had been made by the Resistance. The first wombat leapt through the air towards Luke. Luke squeezed the knife in his right hand. A moment before the wombat landed on top of him, he ducked to the left and struck upwards, stabbing hard and fast into the wombat's heart. He levered the knife back and forward and yanked it out. Blood spurted. The wombat crashed onto his left side. Its weight knocked him to the ground. The second wombat snarled and raced towards Luke, its teeth bared to rip his throat open. Beck stepped in front of Luke, holding her sword at chest height, and slashed downwards into the wombat's neck. The wombat made a screeching sound and turned towards her. She sliced the sword back across its throat. It collapsed. Gunfire rang out down the hill, and a stream of bullets hit the shield around Beck, created by the thong she was carrying. The bullets fell to the ground. Viking mountain biker helped Luke push the wombat away. Luke scrambled to his feet, covered in blood. "Go!" Luke and Viking mountain biker ran up a dirt road towards the lay-by where Luke's sister Ash was waiting with their battered tan sedan. Beck felt for the collars on each wombat and yanked the thongs free, then pounded after the men. Ash had started the car engine. Luke and Viking mountain biker fell into the back. Beck tumbled after them and slammed the door shut. Bullets hit the side and back of the car. Ash slammed her foot on the accelerator and careened onto Mount Stromlo Road in front of the dark blue four-wheel drive. The driver slammed her hand on the horn. The sedan flew down the mountain, leaving the four-wheel drive behind. Close to the bottom, Ash braked hard and stopped. Several cars waiting in a line, most of them with bike racks attached to tow bars or roof racks. The four-wheel drive pulled up behind them. Soldiers appeared on the road and swarmed around the vehicles in front, pointing rifles in the window of each car. "Fuck," Luke swore. Ash flung the car into reverse, swinging its rear end around and within an inch of the four-wheel drive. The driver pummeled the horn. Ash put the car into drive and swerved onto the wrong side of the road. She flew past the line of cars. Beck could hear the soldiers shouting. More bullets hit the vehicle. "Look out!" Beck shrieked. A large army truck appeared in front of them, blocking the road. Ash slammed on the brakes and tried to swing the car around to avoid hitting the truck. There wasn't enough room. The car clipped the shrubs on the edge of the road. Ash struggled to control it. It slid off the side of the road and stopped in a shallow ditch. Beck's body was thrown forward and back in her seatbelt. There was a sharp pain in her chest. She gasped for air. Before she could catch her breath or pick up her sword, soldiers flung the car doors open and wrenched her from the car. She landed on her knees in the dirt and curled over her stomach. One of the soldiers dragged her to her feet and patted her down, removing 2 concealed knives, her phone, her thong, and the 2 thongs she'd taken from the wombats. Ash and Luke had been disarmed too. They met Beck's gaze, their eyes wide. A soldier pushed Viking mountain biker towards them, his head still encased in his bike helmet. He stumbled and landed on his knees in front of Beck. He stayed there, sobbing. Civilians stared at them from their car windows. The soldiers between her and the cars moved aside to allow 2 new soldiers to approach. Beck recognized the tanned face and dark curly hair of the younger soldier, Private Jerome. He muttered to the older soldier. The older soldier eyed Beck with interest. He had a thin face with deep wrinkles, a long thin nose, and ears that stuck out. "I was hoping we'd catch some resistant fish," he said, his voice crisp, "but I never thought we'd net Rebecca Williams." He stepped forward and pointed his rifle at Viking mountain biker's face. "Vincent Werner, give me what you stole." He had a solid grip on his rifle. His soldiers relaxed, his chin firm. He struck Beck as someone who would kill, but only if he thought it necessary. Viking mountain biker continued to sob. He seemed to be verging on hysteria. It wouldn't benefit Beck if the soldier killed him. Either way, she wasn't getting the information. She nudged him with her foot. "Give him the files." He looked at her. His eyes were red and tears dribbled from his nose. She decided the name Vincent suited him better than Viking mountain biker. He wiped his eyes on his sleeve, then dug in his pocket and pulled out a USB drive. The soldier lowered his rifle and held out his hand. Vincent dropped the USB drive into it and he slid it into a pocket on his chest. There was a crackle from his handheld radio. The soldier frowned. "What?" he snapped. "It's some bonies, Captain," a voice replied. The soldier's brows lowered. "Tell them we've got it under control." "Too late." Beck sucked in a breath. A bonehead strode along the bitumen towards them. The civilians in the row of vehicles ducked their heads behind the windows. One couple got out and ran into the trees, abandoning their car. Beck couldn't blame them. The bonehead was smaller than some of the boneheads she'd run into before, but no less terrifying. The bony plate that covered its forehead, starting from its nose and ending in a half circle over the back of its head, with 6 horns evenly spaced around the half circle, were grey. It matched its grey, wrinkled skin. A small mercy was that it was wearing sunglasses, hiding its all-black eyes and lack of eyebrows. The older soldier stared at the boneheads. "What are you doing here?" "Making sure you don't mess this up," the bonehead snapped. It had the same clipped accent as the other boneheads Beck had heard speak. It pointed at Beck. "Do you know who she is?" "Rebecca Williams." "Correct. My bosses are very interested in speaking with her." It turned its face to Jerome. "And they are well aware that this one has let her slip through his fingers more than once." Jerome's face and neck turned red. "I am here to retrieve her." It waved a hand at Vincent. "And the traitor." The older soldier drew himself up. Lieutenant Colonel Nicholas answers to my bosses. Are you going to stand in my way, or are you going to take the prisoner to my vehicle?" The soldier's eyes narrowed. "I haven't had any orders." "I have," the bonehead said. "You can escort them, if you like, but I am taking them. Now." The soldiers considered for a long moment, then nodded and jerked their heads at the other soldiers. "We'll escort." The bonehead strode back the way it came, past the line of cars. The soldier prodded Beck, Ash, Luke, and Vincent to follow. Several army vehicles surrounded a roadblock at the end of the road. The bonehead walked past to a black 4-wheel drive parked on the main road. Its engine was running. A second bonehead was at the wheel, also wearing sunglasses. The 4-wheel drive was extra large with 8 seats. The soldiers pushed Ash and Luke into the back row and Vincent and Beck into the middle row. The bonehead sat in the front passenger seat. The older soldier sat behind it, next to Beck. He held his rifle firm in his weathered hands, pointed at Beck. The bonehead driver roared down the road, ignoring the speed limit and safe driving practices. It seemed to expect that other drivers to get out of the way. 2 army trucks followed behind, the street rushed past in a blur. Beck didn't like the way the bonehead in the passenger seat stared at her from behind its sunglasses. She squeezed her hands into fists, her nails cutting into her palms. The driver slowed as a line of cars appeared on the road in front of them. Another roadblock. Beck squinted through the windscreen, surprised to see 2 boneheads manning the roadblock. That kind of work was usually left to human soldiers. The driver twisted the steering wheel and swerved onto the wrong side of the road to pass the cars. The boneheads manning the roadblock opened the gate and waved them through, but closed it on the 2 army vehicles following. The driver pushed the accelerator down hard and left the roadblock behind. "Wait!" The soldier leaned forward. "We've lost our escort." The bonehead in the passenger seat turned and without a word stabbed a knife straight into the side of the soldier's neck. It wrenched the knife sideways. Blood spurted across the car. Beck ducked and leant against Vincent, raising her arm to protect herself from the blood spray. When she lifted her head and lowered her arm, the soldier was dead. Beck's breath came out in gasps. She felt dizzy. She'd watched people and boneheads killed in front of her before. She'd even been instrumental in killing dozens of people when her first resistant group had blown up Governor Macquarie Tower. But she'd never seen such a quick clinical killing. Vincent was shaking. In the back seat, Ash drew in a sharp breath. Beck's eyes flicked to her. Her face and shirt were splattered with blood. Beck closed her eyes and took several deep breaths to slow her breathing. When she could speak without her voice trembling, she opened her eyes again. "What do you want with us?" The bonehead removed its sunglasses. Beck jerked back. Her shoulders hit the leather behind her. She gripped the edge of the seat to stop her hands from shaking. Instead of black eyes, this bonehead had a dark red ring around each of the sclera in each eye. It was even more terrifying than the black pits she was expecting. "You're in the resistance." It was a statement, not a question. "My family sent me to negotiate." Beck blinked. "You want to negotiate with the resistance?" "Not the resistance. Amber, you." Beck's eyes widened. "You want to negotiate with Amber? She has the Lecchio." "The Lecchio?" The bonehead nodded. "The curse." Beck stared at the bonehead. "Do you mean the power that lets her move fast? Why would you call it a curse?" "What would you call it?" "It's an illusion. It makes you think you are stronger, faster, that you feel no pain, and then delivers all the pain that you should have felt in one hit when you let it go." Beck rubbed her forehead. Sweat mixed with blood. She grasped at what she could understand. "What do you want from her? What are you offering?" The bonehead shook its head. "Not yet. We will discuss our offer later, when the resistance is ready for it." "Why not now?" You don't know that you need it yet." Beck felt a sense of disquiet. What didn't they know they needed? And why was the bonehead confident that they would find out? "In the meantime," the bonehead said, "I have a gift for you." "A gift?" The bonehead tossed her a mobile phone. Beck caught it in two hands. "The location of your friend, Mr. Zhu Hui. It's saved in the contacts." Beck stared at the phone. "How do you know Zhu?" The bonehead's lip curved. "My family knows many things about you, Rebecca Williams. Don't worry, our interests align, or they will soon." "Are you some kind of bonehead resistance?" Luke asked. The driver snorted. The bonehead glanced at the driver and shook its head at Luke. "We have no need for such things. We don't allow any individual as much power as you give your Prime Minister." "We don't give our Prime Minister that much power either," Beck muttered. "He just took it." The bonehead turned back to the front and spoke to the driver in a guttural language. Beck opened the contacts on the phone. There was only one, an address. She memorized it, then let the phone slide onto the floor and kicked it under the driver's seat. She watched the boneheads. They were looking at the road. Beck took another deep breath in and reached across the seat to the soldier's chest. Her fingers touched wet, sticky blood. She gritted her teeth and slid the button of his pocket out of the buttonhole. She slipped her fingers into the pocket and gripped the USB drive. She pulled it out and whipped her hand back as the bonehead turned. The bonehead stared at her with its strange red eyes. Beck felt sweat form on her face. "We'll drop you off now and get rid of this vehicle." Beck wrinkled her brow. "Won't you get in trouble for letting us go?" The bonehead put its sunglasses back on. "Humans think we all look the same. The only thing those soldiers will be able to report is that 2 grey bones took you away. If that creates anxiety among the red bones," the bonehead's lips turned up in a cold smile, "it won't hurt my family's interests." The driver swung the car right. Beck glanced out the window and her whole body went cold. She'd been so focused on extracting the USB drive she hadn't noticed where the driver was taking them. A street of modern townhouses with a single small maple or eucalypt planted on the nature strip in front of every third house. Several blocks held blackened shells where the boneheads and soldiers had destroyed a townhouse or apartment building in retribution for some unknown crime. Most of the houses in the street had boards over one or more windows, not damaged by soldiers but by a group of looters in their late teens and early 20s who had rampaged through the street a few weeks earlier. The driver stopped the car in the middle of the road in front of a white 2-storied townhouse with a grey fence, glass balcony and bright blue feature wall on the top story. It was one of the few with no signs of damage. "I believe this is your stop," the bonehead said. Beck's heart was racing. How did you know? The bonehead sniffed. Next time don't be so fast to scare the looters away with rifles. There's always some spies among the brainless ones. It turned to face the windscreen and leant back in its seat. We'll be in touch. Beck gave the bonehead a wide look, unsettled by its confidence that it would be able to contact her. She pressed her elbows into her side. Ash and Luke swung open the back door and jumped out. Vincent fumbled with the door handle and joined them. Beck slid across to the door and paused. Apparently you know everything about me. Can I at least know your name? You may call me Urilla. She slid to the ground. As soon as she pushed the door closed, the bonehead driver pressed its foot on the accelerator. The four-wheel drive roared around the corner. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.